Well, gentlemen, we had mistake number one. I didn't have audio enabled on my stream for the start. All right. Mistakes were made, damn.
Plays today.
Oh no, a lot of mistakes were made. Okay. Well, we're in that Friday night vibes, boys. We just started talking about a little bit the new map, the new screenshot, Irilla, and what we think the map is gonna look like. I know Dave is our expert on Chivalry One, so
Yeah, so what's interesting is unlike most maps, Arilla is actually quite large. I'm referring to most maps in Chivalry 1. Chivalry 1 was a much smaller scale of combat, with most servers being 32 player or lower. 32 player meaning 16v16, not 32v32. And even less than that sometimes would be on maps. So maps like Dark Forest, Stones Hill, etc., they were made for smaller player counts. Arilla is different. It's quite large. It's very, very big. So if they made a straight remake, I actually think it would work quite well for 40 player. I don't know how well it would work for 64 player, but I'd be willing to try it. And so if it was a straight remake, I'd actually be quite happy. Not only because of nostalgia, but also because I do think it would play quite well. But I highly doubt that it would be a straight remake. They are going to want to reimagine it, or like Scotty said, focus on a different part of the region, whatever you want to call it. So we'll see.
all right, Dave. We're getting some complaints about your microphone being too loud.
My bad.
It's okay. It's okay. We'll forgive the coach. I believe actually you were just referred to as sounding like you're in a can. All right.
I think it sounds okay.
All right. Yep. Well, you know, there are a lot of divas over here in the Angels, so we're very high standards for everything. A lot of complaints. Now, I see. I only just found out now that Dark Forest was a Shiv One map, so they already have experience, kind of taking the theme of the Shiv One maps and turning them into larger scale, I guess, versions.
Yes, you could call it a reimagining.
Mm-hmm.
The objectives are not very similar at all, but what is similar is the theme, the setting, stuff like that. Dark Forest feels like the original Dark Forest, even though it plays nothing like it and is completely large, like a lot larger and has a lot of different aspects to it. So I expect this to be the same. It'll look similar, but it will not feel anything like the original at all, and will basically be a different map entirely.
Yeah, I have my feelings for what the new map's gonna look like. I guess that my hopes and dreams too. Hopefully they're not crushed. But when they were talking about the vineyards and the fields, I'm really hoping we get those Aberfell vibes and we start outside the city and we get to move a few objectives, and then I don't know, maybe we go into the siege at the end. But I'm really hoping we get a little bit more of that open field combat, and it would be great then if they switch it up to that castle fight that Dave wants to at the end. Just
That's how the original map is. You start outside, and then near the end is when they actually start getting into the main building, like most maps, to be honest. And I don't think you're lucky when it comes to TO maps. The last two, so
yeah, no. As I've
seems like you don't
said,
like most TO map editions.
the Thaic stronghold into Tenosia thing has broken me as a person. So, like, I'm really looking for a change up and praying to God I like it.
Do you guys think that we're gonna get like a sequence of maps or just one?
I think we're getting one
Like-
map. We might be lucky enough to get a free for all map with it, but I think
yeah.
we're getting
like
one map.
unlucky enough.
Well, if it's free for all, I'm happy with it. Right, I mean, we needed something for that mode. If it's TDM tossed in also with free for all, then I might be a little salty.
I'd rather have them make a TO map an inch longer than make an FFA map.
Okay, well, do you play much FFA, Dave, or no?
No.
No. See, I'm gonna be going hard in FFA next week as long as it's on the queue, just to get myself a little variety here. Cause I can't take the Tenosia anymore. I can't do it. But
Yeah, I completely understand.
I'm hoping that they do something interesting. I feel like they didn't have any of their like signature kind of creative objectives. Like there was no pig collecting or anything. There were no beehives. I'm hoping there's something to do with alcohol, and I really would love if you could get your character drunk. Like
You can do that already.
Yeah, you could do that already.
Can you like visibly drunk?
Yeah, they get
Just
not
drink
you
from
don't
any cup.
stumble around, but you get like your screen goes a little wonky for like 5 seconds
Oh, really?
when you drink from
Yeah.
goblets on Gallon Court. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You
So
can even if you take a mug as your novelty, then you can just drink
yeah.
from it at any time, and it will get your character drunk. Quite funny.
I hope that I have a feeling there's wine caskets. Maybe you can huck wine caskets at each other and have them explode and make the wine go everywhere. It would be kind of cool. But yeah, I have no idea what's going on with this map. And do we have we don't have any confirmation on any weapons, right? I did hear I don't know if it was I did hear someone in my chat the other day said I don't know if it's a leak or not, so I don't even know if I should say the other weapon. So I don't know if that'll get us in trouble or anything, but Siege is already in the thing, so we might get the Siege crossbow. And there's another
Siege
weapon.
Crossbow, we don't know if we'll get it, but we know that it's a weapon that they've worked on and finished. They actually have a ton of skins finished for them already. They have the weapon icon, and they most likely have all the animations done. So it is finished. It's just a matter of if we're going to get it. Me personally, I think they've actually had it done for a long time, but they didn't release it out of fear that people would hate them.
I mean, I can already tell you I'll hate them. So,
they could soften the blow by just releasing it with another weapon. Like if you have released two weapons, people are
well,
going to be happy.
if you release a flail, all is forgiven. So, as I've said many times,
Yeah, I guess so.
they could do horrible things as long as the flail comes. I mean, that to me is the number one. But I'm really excited to get the new map. Anything to just break it up a little bit. I'm waiting. I feel like
do you guys think Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I feel like we have to be in the home stretch. They usually do a crazy announcement video for the patches. I remember Aberfell's, Galen Courts, they were sick. If there's one thing Torn Banner does well, it's create those cinematic moments. And I'm really excited to get our first viewing on one of those videos. Hopefully for the next session. I feel like we got to be in the home stretch. Tease the screenshot. Get people's appetite. It's got to be coming.
And they usually drop it. They have a PTR, and then they drop it a week later after the PTR. Well, not even sometimes.
Well, that's always the big thing is that the PTR, even though we're testing and giving feedback, is the release.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I know I left a lot of feedback around Thaic, and it got a lot of upvotes and commentary, but I don't think it got any actual changes. So.
Right.
And I know for a fact that the devs watched the video, but it's just too short of a turnaround.
The nature of live service is once they put something out, they're already onto the next thing. They have no time for damage control. So if they release a bad map, it's oh well, and then they go work on the next map. And that kind of sucks because then you get stuff like Hippodrome, and it took them months to remove that from the rotation. So it's the same thing applies with TO maps, I guess. They're just okay, well, some people don't like it, or if the map performs bad, that's the more major issue, that the performance on it is terrible for past gen consoles. Then it's just oh well, we're already working on this vineyard map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I wish that wasn't the case, but I'm sure you're correct in that. I mean, they might have already even started on the next update or map already, so I feel like they might have separate teams, or at least people getting things moving.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so gentlemen, we have a real big topic for today that I know is going to get a lot of blood boiling, a lot of passion from the chats here. And we're going to talk about Chivalry versus Mordhau a little bit. And I know I'm actually a fan of both games. I've really enjoyed both of them. And I think for me, the ideal would be if both games were thriving right now, because competition creates, better products. But that doesn't seem to be the case, because Mordhau has ceased development for the most part. So they're just bleeding out until the last few people are left. But I think Mordhau definitely has done some things that were better than Chivalry and vice versa. And I think You know, there's a lot of things that we can take from both products to really, hopefully, one day get the AAA slasher of our dreams.
Hmm.
The way I see it, Chivalry and Mordhau have the opposite strengths. So this might sound like very cruel to say, but Chivalry wins in almost every category that makes a game fun: graphics, gameplay, sound design, music, maps, weapons, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But then Mordhau wins in pretty much everything that makes an indie game replayable: mod support, ranked mode, private servers, high performance servers, especially. That's another thing. We have 30 tick rate servers on Chivalry 2. It's terrible. Um, and even just the way they manage their communities, Chivalry 2 is way more strict than the Mordhau devs. The Mordhau devs kind of are like Minecraft, where they just let you host servers and do whatever you want. And I actually like that more. So it's like they have the total, but then obviously, like I said, Mordhau fails to make high quality content on a regular basis, and they're literally like polar opposites.
Well, that's the thing
Hmm.
with Mordhau for me is I absolutely loved Mordhau when it released. It was my first foray into the slasher genre, so I never played a game like this, and you got real popular on Steam and on Twitch. So I'd be in there playing, chopping heads, getting my head chopped off, just having a great time. I think I was having so much fun. I almost drank myself into like a stupor on stream one night playing that game. It was it was bad, but I was having a blast, man. The blood loss and the alcohol loss was real. But I did notice I did not play Mordhau nearly as long as, I mean, I'm currently playing Shiv for a very long time now. I think I probably lasted like 3 or 4 months in Mordhau, and just something about the replayability to it and the lack of content, um, which, you know, problem we're hearing now. But I think I quit like shortly after that Crossroads map came out. So I think there's something to be said with how they
Don't
and the
mention
content they were
Crossroads.
releasing, and just the pace of it burned me out. We okay over there, Dave?
Apologies.
No, not really.
Yeah, so like the biggest thing that people tend to like scrutinize with is obviously the combat, and a lot of people think that Mordhau has a much higher skill ceiling, which I tend to agree with. And but like for me, the combat in Mordhau is, once you get to playing like sweatier people or higher in duels or getting better at the game, the combat becomes so janky looking compared to Chivalry, which is why I personally play Chivalry more. But I still like, people do have a, there's like, you know, the the people that just come into your chat when you're streaming Shiv and they're just like, Mordhau better. And like those people sometimes have good arguments. I think like fundamentally it is a harder game, but just because the game's harder or the combat's harder doesn't really make it a better game to me. Like, it might have a higher skill ceiling, but that doesn't automatically make it the better game.
I wouldn't even say that it has a higher skill ceiling.
Yeah,
I would say that it has a higher skill floor. And what I mean by that is
yeah,
that
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
the barrier to entry, like when it comes to fighting the general population of the game, is so much higher in Mordhau because it's based on hard reading, while Chivalry 2 is based on mind gaming and soft reading, and that's a more common skill with most people, and it's easier. So, for example, your average like Chivalry player, right? In Chivalry 2, if let's just say he's fighting a pro, he'll survive like 5 to 10 seconds before he dies. But in Mordhau, they'll survive like 1 or 2 seconds. And
one swing, just a
But
feint.
One
yeah,
wall
into
shot to the head.
Yeah, yeah,
But if you compare a top Shiv player fighting a top Shiv player to a top Mordhau player fighting a top Mordhau player, the skill is totally comparable. Very, very similar, at least from my experience, because I played both for hundreds of hours.
In
And
Mordhau though, there's so much more movement though in and having to also chamber on each side. I don't know if I would say exactly if I agree with the skill floor, but I feel like there still might be a little bit higher skill ceiling. But you know, what are your thoughts on that, Sauter? Like, why would you say that they have an equal skill ceiling? I'm curious.
Because when playing both, I don't feel like I'm having an easier time playing competitively in Chivalry than I do in Mordhau. I don't feel like the I don't feel like I'm limited. Saying something is less skill based or has a lower skill ceiling would imply that the at the top level they're all very relative, and that it's very easy for a new player to get to that level of skill, or at least easier than in Mordhau. But in my case, and in many of the other players that I've talked to who have played both competitively, that's simply not the case. It's just different skills that they need to learn. What I will say though is that at least when it comes to dueling, Chivalry 2, its combat system devolves a little bit compared to Mordhau, where the combat system holds up quite well in dueling. But I don't respect duels much to begin with, so I don't see a problem with that, to be honest. The game is not the game, and it's like game modes that it focuses on are not really like they're not trying to get you to duel the same guy for 5 minutes straight. They're duels are meant to happen not in a bubble, but in the overarching battle. So that's why I don't see it as that big of an issue. But when it comes to like TO Chivalry 2 or Frontline Mordhau or LTS in Chivalry 2 and LTS in Mordhau, I believe they are just as skill-based as each other.
I think it's a little bit overblown sometimes. We've all been in gaming a long time when people talk about the skill differences between games and gamers, and I just don't think that's actually the case, because there are tons of good gamers out there, and the people who invest the time will get good at games. So if you took people who are top duelers in Mordhau, gave them a few months in Chivalry, I think they'd be top duelers in Chivalry. And I think you could go the other way too. If you took some of the Chivalry pros and said, here, you're going to spend 6 months learning Mordhau, they'd be at the elite tier also. I think that stuff always evens out, because the people who are going to put the time and the work into learning the mechanics and getting good at them are going to be good at virtually every game. And I played tons of different even genres of games with my friends, from FPSs to things like this, to Battle Royales, to MOBAs. And there is always the exact same hierarchy amongst my friend group in skill, no matter what genre, because, certain people just put more time in or put more effort into learning, put more practice in. And I just don't think that's really even a relevant argument to if the game's better or not.
They would say that if a game has a higher skill ceiling and is just as fun, they would say that that makes the game objectively better. And I get that, but like you said, it's irrelevant because I don't agree with that statement to begin with, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no. Now, I think Mordhau made some mistakes in their development. As I said, I thought they had so much momentum when it first released, because there were tons of people like me who had never even heard of the first Chivalry until well after the game was dead. It was different times. And Mordhau comes on Steam. It's got hundreds of thousands of viewers on Twitch. Everyone I knew basically bought it. And they had so much momentum to take the genre and kind of push it forward and hire a team. I think 4 people made the game. Does that sound correct? They have a team of about 4.
I'm not too sure.
But all right, let's say it's in that range. They could have hired a studio. Yeah, hired a studio, got some people working on making new maps with them, and invested in themselves to make the game better.
The issue was not just like a lack of people, but this may sound harsh, a lack of talent. I do believe that Mordhau just looks worse. I believe it is, like the maps are not designed as well, right? Like I genuinely believe I don't think the sound effects are as cool or the voice acting as good. Like these are just things like, doesn't matter how hard they work. Yeah. They're not as good to me.
Presentation, yeah, definitely not as good. But remember, they had a big head start and released a few years ahead. And I feel like if they added more talent, they could have taken that momentum and continued to build the game.
They had a monopoly.
Exactly. So they had the chance, first mover advantage to be such a polished and completed game by the time Chivalry came, that they could have, I think, held the market. But they decided to take the money, run off to Colombia, and have a good time.
Hey, that's not that. If you're
you can't fault them for it. You can't fault them for it.
Yeah, I don't blame them for it.
If you would like to talk to Ziggy Lada or other members of the Mordhau community, they will tell you about one of the developers who's actually doing crack. And
I've heard stories on Reddit of that guy. I don't know what's true or not, but I know it's a big joke.
pretty crazy.
Oh,
But
Jesus.
yeah, I have no idea. I just know from the Reddit posts that people are very passionately against the one developer.
Yeah, and it also another reason why it sort of lost its steam as it went on is because it had an identity crisis as to whether or not it wanted to be competitive or casual, and they couldn't figure it out. So that was already a very big downside.
Well,
Uh,
it definitely wasn't casual because all my friends who got it with me very quickly quit because they couldn't figure it out. You guys know my buddy Crafty. He couldn't make it through the tutorial in the game, so it was
the
Shit.
tutorial.
Crafty did not make classic Angel story. He rage quit the tutorial after 2 hours.
I when I first played it, I never laughed so hard. For some reason, for me, the role play, the customization, like it was just like a goofier game for sure. In the 64 man, it's like so much more lackadaisical. Like I feel like in Shiv, I want to push, I want to go, I want to get the objective, I want to do this. But in Mordhau, sometimes like you just run around and fool around with people, so it's a different vibe for sure. And I kind of miss that vibe a little bit, to be honest, sometimes because like constantly trying to get top leaderboards. I don't know. Shiv to me, I do like that. I do like it, but sometimes I miss the more relaxed nature of the 64 man. But I think that Shiv 2's 64 man is just far more superior, and that's why I play 64 man, and I'm not about duels either. And but I do miss it from time to time, and I think about going back, but I haven't even played it since Shiv 2.
I haven't either, and I've also thought about throwing it up, but I'm like, then I gotta learn everything again. I'm like, yeah, nah, I'm good. Like, it's just too much for my brain right now. But that is the thing with Shiv, though, as you were saying, with like the maps and the immersion, is I feel like as much as we complain about the offense versus defense, what Shiv does good is it gives you a lot of variety per map. Like you're constantly changing what you're doing. So I think that just keeps you a little bit more engaged. Then I loved the Frontlines map. It looked like an old battlefield. I'm trying to remember the name on Mordhau.
Yeah, I don't remember it, but I think I know which one you're talking about.
But I love that map. But when you're on that for front, you're doing the same thing the entire map. You could be pushing the middle point for 30 minutes, so it's a little bit more monotony in there. Same with what was it, Mountain Peak? Everyone played same.
Yeah,
same
I don't
thing.
know how else to say it, but Frontline is not a good game mode. And for the overwhelming majority of the early release of Mordhau, that was the only game mode. It took a very long time for them to add a team objective equivalent, and when they did, it still wasn't as good as like what I'm used to. So, for the overwhelming majority of like my gameplay on Mordhau, the gameplay was just not as fun as Chivalry. So.
Yeah, I made it in that game. I was having a great time. I was getting a little bit bored of the content, and then their new map, the Crossroads one with all the horses, came out, and I think I hate horses in Mordhau more than I hate archery and Shiv.
I actually
don't
really
mention Crossroads. Don't mention Crossroads.
I hated the map so much, and everyone would vote for the map.
When it came out, it was terrible, but then they fixed it a bit. But I kind of liked it, man. I would just hop on a horse and
fucking
just
Scotty
destroy, dude. It was fun, dude. I don't know. Everyone was a hater on that map. I didn't mind it.
Well, people kept voting for it, and that basically made me quit the game because I'm like, I used to run the glaive just to kill people with horses all the time. Just like, enough. Get your ass down. Oh man, I don't like the low skill one shot mechanic things in games, and that was ripe in Mordhau. I remember there would be the cavalry mains on like Mountain Peak or whatever, and they would have a set route and they just ride it for 30 minutes straight, one shot people.
That's why horses are so much better in Chivalry 2, because they have cavalry waves, and once the horses are dead, they're dead. They don't respawn until the next cavalry wave.
As much as people hate on horses, I think the horses even just feel better to use in Chivalry than Mordhau's. Mordhau's, they just felt like straight jank, like just ride straight off the map, and I don't know. They did not.
I feel like you have way more control with the horses in Chivalry 2, but like I don't know. I like the ability to couch certain weapons in Mordhau. I liked like the S-Talk blade, for example, you could couch. And I felt like there was more opportunity to stay alive on the horse for longer. I feel like sometimes the spawns in Chivalry, right, where you have the bridge on Askendir or whichever map I'm talking about, the bridge, you just kind of go across and then you end up right in their spawn, and so you have to be very careful, and there's not even a lot of room to ride the horse, so it's really meant to just be like all right, we're gonna
Straight
ride
shot,
our lances
yeah.
and take out as many as we can. Whereas in Mordhau, I kind of like the ability to become that like horseman that stays alive, right?
Yeah.
And
Like I said, they want you to die in Chivalry 2.
yeah, yeah.
And that's kind of the whole philosophy of the game, like just making it to where you die as much as possible, no matter how good you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that also extends to the horses. But to me, it's good because it means that there's less, like, I guess, cavalry superiority, where they're just existing, constantly harassing everyone forever. Because that's what it is. It's like a vehicle in Battlefield. You die because I'm bigger than you, and you die. Like, you don't, when you're in Battlefield, no matter how good you are, you don't face the tank alone. You die.
I felt like in Mordhau though, when you would fight a good player when you're on the horse, like you had a really easy chance to die as well. I still felt like there was some skill to it and skill to fighting horses.
Yeah, of course there is.
I felt like there was a little bit more room to play, but I agree with what you're saying. But I think there's like a little bit more to.
Yeah, you're right. There's also
the
like
horseman.
that's why couching isn't in Chivalry 2. You only can couch with the lance. Because it just makes killing people on horseback so easy. Like so effortless.
I like that there's still the interactions of like the blades that you can counter and stuff in Chivalry still from horseback. I think that's a nice little touch that makes it a little bit more interesting. You can make some like cool cinematic like medieval times type moments where you're fighting someone on foot while you're on horse. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it.
But now I think where Mordhau really excelled was just in their customization, though, and I feel like that's a place that Shiv could take a lot of inspiration from them.
I'm a fan, man. I know. Sauter might have a different opinion, but I really loved it. I
did too.
I really liked the because when I play games, I really like to immerse my character, and it's fun to make characters. I made some Shiv characters on stream, and it was fun the other night. And I don't know. I know that like Shiv 2 is one of its strengths is that class-based system, but I still think that we could incorporate Mordhau's level of customization for your classes. Just limit like what armor sets that you can put on, but I also like to make my own class. I also like to be like, okay, I'm gonna be maybe a lighter armor fighter. I don't know about the perks that much. I didn't think that they were extraordinary. The Bloodlust perk back in the day was super cheap, but it's also another kind of level of customization you can do, which was kind of interesting. But being able to just like equip your armor and figure out like a cool build was sick to me, and it made everyone more diverse looking. Right? It's like. Which could also cause problems to the casuals because there would be spies and shit, but we could, they could figure it out in a way that makes sense for Chivalry, but and it's also more monetizable, right? Since Chivalry is trying to make skins and new weapon skins and stuff every release, I think they would have much more opportunity for smaller armor sets. Like I just want to buy this armor for $2 or something. But that's a dream to have.
I think they charge $10 for the Gladiator bundle. Hope you know that.
Yeah. No,
I'm still debating getting that one.
But I could just be like,
hilarious.
I could just buy the one piece of armor from that Gladiator bundle. You know what I mean? Instead of having to equip like most of it. Or
oh my god!
It.
If my character could run around naked with just the underwear piece of the barbarian guy on, that would be it right there.
So there actually is a lot of scrapped stuff for Chivalry 2, like body types. That was scrapped. Unfortunately, it might be coming, but it's obviously not. Right? Hasn't been. So
coming soon.
Yeah, exactly. Coming soon. Trademark. For me, I like you said, I like the classes of Chivalry 2 more than I like the mercenary system of Mordhau. But the mercenary customization in Mordhau is just objectively better. It is better. If you asked me what customization I would have Chivalry 1's customization, right? But if I had to choose between Chivalry 2 and Mordhau, I would have Mordhau's. It's just, you know, better in general, because like you said, you get to create your own soldier. I do think the armor sets and pieces that are exclusive to each class is pretty important for like distinction between classes because they play so differently and also how damage bonuses work. What am I trying to say? Mordhau doesn't have that. They just have damage bonuses based on armor, so you don't need that distinction. But for Chivalry 2, you do need that distinction. So that's why I say it's so important that we need armor locked by class. There can be some overlap. Some specific helmets and pieces can be placed on all classes. Like when they release, I don't know, a St. Pete hat for Christmas, you put that on everyone. But like certain pieces of armor need to be consistent across all classes so we know who we're fighting. One of my biggest complaints with the Tenosian update was that you had the same armor sets on multiple classes, which is stupid. You charge an archer and then like he has like infinite stamina. You're like, what the heck? And he's a vanguard. So that's stupid. That's why I feel that way.
I wasn't I'm not opposed to either system. I feel like I wouldn't care as long as the gameplay is good. Like you could sell me on either one if there was a new slasher coming out. Like that would be, I feel like, low on my order of things I really cared about. But with Mordhau, what's so cool is that you could always see unique characters. Like no matter how long you play Mordhau, you can see a unique character. I feel like with Chivalry 2, you might have some people who have a little bit of a unique look to them, but you're going to see multiple other people look very similar. And I think if they just like did something more with the heraldry, like made it more customizable, made it appear better. Like I just give everyone an option to put a tunic on and customize it the way they want. I feel like that could be a big jump and just like adding a bit of that.
It's important to make it understood that the problem is not Chivalry 2's customization. It's well, it is, but it's Chivalry 2's lack of content and the lack of expansion on that customization because the same systems were used in Chivalry 1, just better. And no one complained because everyone looked different, right? For example, something that Chivalry 1 did is it allowed you to make your own heraldry, right? And what I mean by this is let's take the, I don't know, like the stripes heraldry, right? It's like, let's just say it's like white and yellow stripes. In Chivalry 1, you could decide, do I want white and black stripes, or blue and red stripes, or green and purple, or do I want green and green, or do I want green and dark green? And you can basically customize that to whatever you want, and you can customize every single heraldry to the fullest extent, having the primary, secondary, tertiary color, and the coat of arms in the middle, and then customizing that coat of arms, primary, secondary, tertiary colors, and then on top of that, that heraldry that you made would apply to all different armor sets. In Chivalry 2, heraldry are preset color combinations that you don't get to change, and they also don't even apply to all armors. Most armors that are new don't get heraldry, especially Tenosia. God, I hate those Tenosia armor sets. So that's
Gloria Victis also does heraldries quite well, in my opinion, for how scrappy it is. You can make your heraldry and it appears on your shield. You can make different heraldries look, you know, and when you put on like a heater shield versus a different shield, I think you might be able to customize that as well. But like, and then when you get siege weapons, when you buy siege weapons and stuff, like your logo appears on the siege weapon, so like people know that you bought it or your guild is controlling that. So I think they have a lot of good ideas there. But I agree. I think the heraldries are a little lackluster, and I just go octopus every time or squirrel. You know?
I honestly don't even know what I go.
Look, I just want to make it clear that it's not our system that's flawed. It's just Torn Banner's implementation of it and like the lack of support that they're giving to it. Because when they used the same system in Chivalry 1, it was just it made everyone look just as distinct as they do in Mordhau. Just you know, we don't have that because they just don't flesh it out like they did in the original. It's simply that.
Yeah. just letting us like customize the cloth items like you said like that to that extent would just add so much, I feel like, to the game. Like I can say I probably spent more time in my first month customizing my Mordhau characters than I have spent in my, what is it, year and a half or whatever playing Chivalry 2. You know, so like I know I'm notoriously indifferent to my skins in Shiv 2. Like, I think last time I got the bug where it reset everything I played for months as a default. So, I, you know, just adding that character to it would be so nice. Like, did it in the
My
game.
teammate plays all default, like armor sets, and he usually played like all default plus peasant cap, but then he kept getting targeted because he had the peasant cap, so now he just plays all default, and it's so sad. It's like
See,
no drive.
I like to rock the peasant cap to let them know what's about to happen.
Yeah, I definitely felt like you get targeted when you have the King's Edition stuff too. People go straight for you.
I have found with the King's Edition that with the white tunic, the teammates be coming at me.
Oh yeah, I had my entire team wailing at me on the spawn when that first came out. I was like, what the heck? Why are so many people all up on my nuts right now, dude? And it was because of that tunic. I took it off, and it's.
I still wear
it. with the Game Pass, the new Game Pass players is when it was happening the most, obviously. But I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, no, I still wear it. I mean, it just looks too. I like the crown. I like the crown too. I think that's my favorite top in the game. But, we got any other points we want to make on Mordhau and Shiv?
Maybe I kind of like how they dealt with archers in Mordhau, where you could time the parry. It wasn't as difficult as countering in Shiv 2. If you were paying attention to an archer, you could easily counter them in close distance. But if you were fighting and stuff and you didn't see the archer, they would obviously have the advantage. But if you target an archer, you know, you can still beat him. Whereas in Shiv, sometimes, especially if you don't have a shield, you have to do the
dip dog,
do the old jig.
duck,
yeah, the duck, the weird run up to him.
There's some hidden
feel
mechanics.
right.
Like if you block an archer, you actually block a third of his arrow damage.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's a good way to, if you don't want to try and attempt to counter their arrow, that's a really easy way, especially if you're playing knight. You can just walk up to them while holding block like that, and you'll block most of the damage. Their arrow damage will be pitiful. But what should we take from Mordhau and Chivalry 2? I wish they took from each other's strengths and learned from each other.
Agreed.
I want Chivalry 2. I want Chivalry 2 to add that ranked private servers mod support, and overall just be talking to us more as devs. Mm-hmm. And then I want Mordhau to hire more talented developers to make better maps, better graphics, just a more artistic looking game, and better voice acting, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, to me, nothing would excite me more than if I heard a Mordhau 2 was announced, because this whole thing with competition, right? Like, then Shiv's either got to step up their game, or Mordhau's going to release a product that's might be superior to Shiv 2, and then, you know, at least we get in that little back and forth between, between chivalries, like something set the bar a little bit higher, and then Shiv 3 will come out and hopefully, you know, set that even higher. But right now, I have the feeling that Mordhau 2 is not going to happen.
They're making another game. I don't know what that game will be, but they're making another one. So,
like, I hope. I would love to get that announcement, because I just feel like anything coming in the genre, like, let's do it.
They're hiring new staff and they're working on a new product. It's just, I don't know what that will be.
Like, I hope so. I hope so.
The next game we have looking forward to is Renown. I think in this same sort of vein. I don't think I would consider Dark and Darker. I'm also looking forward to, obviously, but I don't think it's even. In the
I wouldn't say
vein.
It's the same genre of gaming.
Nah, but Renown seems like it is similar, and I think they might even have like 64-man like modes as well as the core gameplay, which is the Rust style. Right?
having played Renown, I think the like team modes are basically just placeholders for the bigger game, and they're not in any way, shape, or form going to compete with Chivalry or Mordhau as that type of game.
Which would
Hmm.
be very intelligent of them.
Yeah,
I've been supporting Renown since very early on. Like when I bought the game, it was $10. So that's back then it was like they had like no one in their corner. And I always got the impression like, hey, this is a slasher, that's a survival game.
yeah,
And that is all it will be. And that's fine to me. That's what I want it to be. Other people are asking me like, "Yo, you gonna play Renown like that?" Like, I'm not gonna play it competitively. I'm not gonna play LTS in Renown or anything like that. I'm gonna build bases with my friends and yell at people in proximity chat.
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think Renown. What will make Renown succeed or fail is the survival aspects of the game, and the combat will be good enough. Now, I know they're working on a new set of animation passes, so hopefully it refines the combat even more. But right now, I'd say the combat it's like Mordhau light, like it's very Mordhau themed, and they kind of lowered the skill gap in it a little bit. It's a lot more forgiving on the parries and stuff. But it's a little janky. But I like the developers. I feel like they made consistent progress since the first time I tried the game. And as long as they keep implementing things, I think it's something that has potential to hold a kind of niche audience for a bit. And I don't see it as a competitor to Mordhau or Chivalry, though.
Mm-mm. No, no.
No, not at all. Which is good.
Yeah, no, like, look, anything we get medieval in the genre to me is a big win. Like, I don't
And
think we get
when
enough
we're
chance.
tired of playing Chivalry 2, we can always play some weird survival version of it and
A
then go
hundred
back.
percent.
Like
Yeah,
the ARPG genre right now has so many choices, and I want that for this genre as well. And having like seasonal things where you play a lot of Shiv, everyone's playing Shiv, then everyone's playing some Renown when new content comes up. I really want that for us.
I
Having
agree.
these having
Agreed.
these dry spells
Agreed.
of
I don't
Chivalry
think that
2, it's so bad having these dry spells.
I don't think you can compete with Chivalry on what it does unless you have an equal amount of money and talent. Because to make a game that's 64 players, massive scale battles, with a good combat system, good graphics, good maps that are huge, you need like a really big team and like money. Chivalry
Yeah.
barely got it done. Honestly, in my opinion, they didn't.
Mhm.
Look at all the holes in our game.
Yeah,
It's
for
like
sure.
really really busted, and that was with a producer and also years of development and a pretty big studio. Now with 80 employees, they could barely hold it together with duct tape. So
Yeah.
how is an indie studio going to manage that?
I
They
have
can't.
low expectations for any of the like kind of announced or early alpha slashers that have been in development. I think it's just going to be such a tall ass to do a one up over Mordhau or Chivalry in that regard, especially for
Yeah,
a new
that's why
team
Renown
coming
looks like
into
the
the
smartest.
genre.
They're doing something totally distinct from Chivalry.
Mm-hmm.
That way they are competing because they're both slashers, but they're not competing because they're totally different gameplay
Yeah.
besides the combat.
uh, Games like Renown, Dark and Darker, or even the other one, the Expedition Agartha, like games like that, like the combat has to be just good enough, right? It doesn't have to be Shiv good. It has to be good enough, and not all those
Expedition
games have
Agartha
good enough
going free to
combat.
play.
What'd you say, Sonner?
Expedition Agartha is going free to play.
I saw that. Unfortunately, I think Dark and Darker releasing killed any chance they have of being
I agree.
successful. Which I'm pretty soft on indie games, but I was able to find some fun in playing that game, and I thought like for people like I think they were young kids making the game. It was quite impressive what the systems and stuff they were able to get in the game. Like I mean, hell, it's a lot better than anything I would ever be able to do. Like I think it's still pretty impressive, but they got a long way to go. And speaking of indie games, all right, we've just had massive achievement actually. After 10 years in development, Gloria Victis has released MMO medieval slasher. Um, the premise of the game for the people who haven't seen it yet is it kind of combines, I'd say, the Mountain Blade kind of combat with, say, something like New World or an MMO game where you're fighting for a faction to compete for territory. There is some aspect of looting your enemies, and it has PvE, it has crafting, it has massive open world fights that are always different, large castle sieges, like, you know, it's on paper, it should be the dream game for me, right? In actuality, you know, not so much. I know Scotty and I both have played that a little bit. I don't know if Dave has ever hopped in that.
Not at all.
Okay, there's a
Yeah,
fun
I have about
factor to
100
it.
hours, and most of those hours were in early access like a year ago. I actually streamed it for about a month or two straight to explore it, and it was quite an experience with the community and stuff over there. They're very tight community, I would say. They all know each other, and it was interesting. It's you know, I think it falls short on a lot of things that I would like to see in a game. But yeah, what's the topic that you have for us on it, Strida? Anything? I could ramble about it.
Yeah, no. So like, I'm always interested in games that come out like that because I feel like it's an area where there's so much untapped potential, right?
Yep.
Like, so we have Gloria Victis just came out. It's a full-on medieval world. It has everything you could possibly want to do for casual people, from crafting, gathering, PvE, those large, what are they called, like group quests, open world quests.
Yeah,
It
there's
has
like
boss
raids kind of.
fights. It has open world PvP. It has everything that I feel like a mainstream medieval game would want, and I feel like Mortal Online takes a little bit of that too. And I feel like they're games that I should be playing like crazy, but they're a little bit jankier than you want. So I feel like, just to me, I see the potential that this could be like the way in for a medieval game like this to get mainstream attention if someone would take the risk.
Yeah, it's a very risky type of game, and you have to give props to the developers for doing it. Even though it took them 10 years, but
Look.
they are a small team. But I think, you know, the PvP open world stuff is always a huge risk, and you know, it's somewhat successful. I think a lot of the DDoS that was happening during the release actually was kind of hard to watch, because you know, it went from high viewership then playing to lower and lower. And myself, I would have put more hours into it at release if it wasn't constantly being DDoSed. But yeah, I think Gloria Victis, you know, it falls short. The combat's good, but it falls short in a lot of the group battle kind of stuff for me. Like, it's fun at first, but then it just starts getting... The battles seem to be the same every time, where you're protecting doorways, you're overheading with long weapons. Spears have an obvious advantage in almost every circumstance during a lot of the larger battles. Unless you're, you know, a sweat or you're super good, you could probably get around that. You know,
I have no experience with the game, but it sounds like the medieval LARPers love it.
Yeah, they do. It's kind of, I think it kind of draws some of that kind of crowd as well.
Yeah, I was like talking to a friend about like archers in Chivalry. I'm like, well, Chivalry 2 is a medieval game, so it's going to have archery and ballistas and catapults. That's just part of the experience of a medieval, you know, atmosphere. He's like, I don't care. That's all LARP stuff. That's all LARP stuff. I want the melee combat. I'm like, okay. so, you know, I guess, you know, sometimes that type of stuff reigns supreme, like the spear being god tier, just completely disregarding.
Yeah, and they also changed how you the backpedaling in that game. It used to be way better, where it used to be slower, but now they increase the speed right before
you
release.
Can't catch them.
You can't catch people, and they can just back away.
That's exactly what it looks like too. That's basically the animations. The combat's a little jank. I still enjoyed the large scale fights enough to where I'm like, I could see like this game has almost everything that New World has in it. Like if you listed down the features, but you know how amazing New World looks. And I'm always like, in my head, I'm like, what if a company, like what if Amazon had decided to
Yeah.
make Gloria Victis? I feel like it could be so popular
Yeah,
and
I
so
hope that
amazing.
PAX Day kind of goes along a little bit and learns a lot from Gloria Victis. I think it's going to be more geared towards casuals a bit, but like, I don't know. It could, maybe the combat could be cool, but we haven't seen any footage. But
I think an MMO game is where you could lower the skill gap a little bit in combat and still have it fun. Like I
yeah,
think this is like a good entry for people into the genre. So I feel like it's such a missed area that you could get those casual players in the actual game. I mean, if you
Right.
added like some abilities and skill trees and gear, I feel like there's a lot of stuff to keep people actually playing a medieval game.
right.
And yeah, I don't know. I just I enjoyed the game. I've been playing less and less because the last few times I logged on, I couldn't find action.
Yeah, I think the PvE in that game is so atrocious that when there's no
It's
PvP
awful.
There's no good PvP going on, which there is a lot of good PvP going on a lot, but then sometimes it just dies out randomly because people just give up on sieging a castle or something and just leave, and you're like, where'd
Where'd
is
everyone go?
everybody? You know, and then you're back to farming boars
Which
and just mining or something. and
I
it's like,
thought
fuck.
the crafting, gathering, and PvE was awful. Like it was there. It's on the back of the box. It's there, but I feel like that's what
the
that game
crafting
suffers
is cool,
from.
but getting the resources sucks. It's boring.
I feel like where that game suffers, and it feels very indie, is every feature they say it's in there, okay, but it's not all done well. Like it's just there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I always wanted to get into Mortal Online too. I watched some people stream it and stuff. Very similar game, and I tried it one time for about an hour and a half, and I returned it on Steam. I was like, this is probably the most dog shit game I've ever played.
You'll never believe the offer I got. A guy randomly DM'd me on Discord regarding Mortal Online 2. He said, you found my YouTube channel. He's like, listen, I see you're like a Chivalry 2 player. I'm like, yeah. He's like, play Mortal Online for me, and I will give you gear and like power level your account, but you fight for me.
You fight for me. Let's go.
Yeah,
I like it. I like that deal. I like that guy.
I was like, I don't know, man. Doesn't look like my type of game. He was like, just all you have to do is start an account, and then I will give you gear, and then you fight for me. I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to farm. It's an MMO. He's like, I'll give you an account.
That's hilarious.
Oh my dude, people are desperate in those types of games to get you to keep playing. It's funny. Like EVE Online was a similar vein when I think like this is before I started streaming seriously, but I streamed, like I don't know, maybe like 5 or like 3 years before I actually started streaming on this account, and people were just giving me ships and like all this stuff, and I was like, relax, like I'm just trying this game out, and that's kind of like the Mortal Online 2 community a little bit. But I only got through Haven. I couldn't get through more of that.
I didn't even make it.
And then whenever I'm watching somebody play, it's usually them riding on a horse for about an hour and a half, and then they get either ganked because they're streaming, or very rarely do I tune in and see some really
epic
cool battles. But like they do happen.
They happen.
And that old school combat, I just can't really do it anymore, and that's why I haven't put any more time into that game. But
I didn't make it through Haven because it's interesting to me, because whenever I watch streams, I'm like, okay, the graphics look pretty good. I felt like I logged in the game and they just looked awful to me. But like there were so many just mobs in the first area. It sent me floating 30 feet in the air, or like just not even reacting.
Did you try it right at release as well? Like right at the when did you try it? Sorry,
I tried it maybe, I think, over the summer.
Okay.
So I don't know, 5-6 months ago.
Yeah, I mean the game is still probably jank, so I was just wondering.
I was like, in combat with mobs, and you hit them, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna footwork them away. I'm 10 feet from them, and they're still hitting me. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. It just felt so bad.
You have to like get good at the desync in that game, and like to me, I hate that.
That was a deal breaker for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we're in the home stretch here. Do we have any questions in the chat before we're gonna be cutting off at 8 here?